Coming up next on Executive Caterers Corporate Club at Landerhaven, Emmy Award-winning Fox 8 anchor Bill Martin talks to Cleveland State University President Dr. Ronald Berkman about his vision for Cleveland State University and the role of an urban university in today's society.
From the Grand Ballroom at Executive Caterers at Landerhaven, thank you for joining us as we celebrate more than 20 years of presenting important and timely discussions. Corporate Club is the direct link for community leaders to connect with regional businesses, government, and nonprofit organizations. This series of programs deals with those issues and persons that impact on the lives of those who live in Northeastern Ohio. Corporate Club at Landerhaven begins right now.
Thank you. And I'm Harlan Diamond, president of Executive Caterers, and been part of this show since it started. These are special people, and we're honored to have you, Dr. Berkman. We're honored to welcome you to Landerhaven and to Cleveland. And Bill, how nice it is to have you here. Thank you. This is going to be a wonderful show. I have a few things to say, but I'll wait till the end. Take care, everybody.
Well, welcome, everybody. What a handsome group of people. Great to see you, including you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Let's talk, first of all, a little bit about your background and your family. People get to know you more, so when they see you around town, they'll know about you. Happily married for how many years now?
This marriage for 4 years now.
That's good.
Yes.
And grown kids all over.
All grown kids all over. We have a daughter who is in law school, a son who is in the creative writing program at Brooklyn College, where I actually once taught in my infancy. I taught at Brooklyn College. A daughter who is at FIU, where I also once taught and was the provost, and a daughter who's out in San Francisco now, beginning an internship.
Some Floridians, and you've kind of lived all over the place. Any particular places you like more than others, or that brought a richness to your life that you now bring to Cleveland?
I think that the places that I've had the opportunity to live, and largely in big cities, except for my sojourn in Princeton, my 6 or 7 year sojourn in Princeton, have been in big cities. And the big cities have been New York, Miami, San Juan, Puerto Rico, where I spent a year as a visiting scholar, and now in Cleveland. And the nice part of that tapestry is they're very, very different cities. So each time I've gone to those cities and had an experience of those cities, an experience of learning the city, it's been a growth experience for me. So I hadn't done the Midwest. I wanted to do the Midwest before the tour was over. So I thought Cleveland, although in some ways Cleveland seems Midwest, and in other ways it seems very Northeastern in other ways as a city, Cleveland. So it's kind of maybe caught in that piece.
A lot of the big question a lot of us like to ask, because we get to a certain age, and I'm getting there as my hair grays and goes away. We want to go to Florida, but you were in Florida and you want to come to Cleveland. So what enticed you to come here?
A couple of things enticed me to come here. I think that Cleveland has always been an incredibly interesting American endowment as a city. I really do. And those of us who are not from Cleveland and think about Cleveland as a kind of unique urban endowment. So that was a piece of it. And I talked to people as I was considering the opportunity, and I talked to people who I respected in Cleveland who had worked in Miami, who had worked in Cleveland or knew Cleveland. And really very interestingly, to a person, they were really high on Cleveland. People were laudatory about what Cleveland had done and the energy that there is in Cleveland, etc. So the other piece is to work in really in many ways, the quintessential urban university. So Florida International was located in a huge metropolitan area, but it wasn't in the urban core. And there's a difference between being in a university, at least for me, that is located in the urban core and is of the city, as opposed to a university that's located in a big metropolitan area and happens to be in a city.
Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. You've been through a winter here, and your wife has as well.
Is that what that was?
Yeah. Did she want to move back to Florida, or is it okay?
No. She was, she really, took the winter like a champ. When I came here, I said, just think of it this way: it'll kind of be the opposite of what we do in Florida, because in the summer in Florida, everybody darts from one air conditioning space to another. I mean, people don't go out strolling generally at high noon in Miami, basically. So I said, in Cleveland, the winter will probably just be the opposite. People will run from one warm space to the other. You'll just need more covering when you go from one space to the other. So I think she really enjoyed the winter. We live in Shaker Heights. It's a really beautiful community. There was snow to look at all year long, all winter long.
All year long.
Yeah, all year.
I'm glad. So it is different, and it's beautiful, and it's in its own right.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe
it is.
not driving in, but.
Yes, it is.
My wife is a proud graduate of the Cleveland State University.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to add that to the moniker at some point.
Hadn't really thought about being the Cleveland State University. No, or the University of Cleveland, for that matter. When I came here, there were people who said, "Why don't you rename yourself the University of Cleveland?" And I guess my first response is, what will really be different if we change our name to the University of Cleveland? Wouldn't it be better to mature what we have and hold on to this brand and all the alums who own this brand of Cleveland State University than to become the University of Cleveland? So I'm very happy with the name. It falls off the tongue very nicely. There's lots of people who resonate with it.
I know she's a proud graduate, and I have 12-year-old twins. I didn't know if there was a break.
Are they graduates too?
Well, they might get there eventually. Is there a tuition break at all now that we're here, or what?
Yeah, there's a twin tuition break, yeah.
Let's talk about the urban university. We talked a little bit about this before, and I find it interesting in a time now where universities are sending out satellites and hospitals are sending out satellites. You're consolidating an urban school and how different that is.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was and some other universities in Ohio and also in Florida, we saw this phenomenon in Florida, also opened a lot of satellite campuses. And there's wisdom to satellite campuses, and there's also complexities to satellite campuses. What I want to do and what we want to do at Cleveland State is use the distinctiveness of the location of being inside the urban core. Because we're trying to develop and we're trying to mature an educational product that we call engaged learning for students. And engaged learning for students is not creating or is trying to overcome what may have been the firewall between your life as a student and your life in the beginning of the workforce. So we are trying to give opportunities for students while they're still students to get that experience, whether it's in the arts or whether it's in cultural institutions or whether it's in business or whether it's in engineering, to get some experience of that while they're in school. Because the truth of the matter also, is that most of them really don't know about what they want to be. They have an idea that I want to be something, but they're not quite sure how to fill in all the blanks of what that something is. So I also think by giving them an opportunity to have that exposure while they're still students, they'll decide if really the something is the right thing.
I'm still deciding. I haven't gotten there yet. Is some of the richness too, and I've seen people are much older going back to school, people are changing careers. We had a daughter in the hospital recently, and she's fine. and there was a nurse taking care of her who was a teacher who went back to school in his 30s.
Wow.
And decided to be a nurse and kind of change it. You're seeing that, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. And you have probably seen some of the data which hypothesizes that individuals who enter the workforce currently will probably change careers 5 to 7 times before they're done with their working life. Now, if that's the case, I think the best we can do really for students is to give them a set of functional skills and foundational skills that can move with them from one career to another career. I think that is there's a lot of new realities. There really are a lot of new realities, and big institutions are not always the best at adopting to new realities.
I remember when then Jacobs Field, now Progressive Field, opened the ballpark. I was doing a story at the time and watching some man grabbing onto the bars looking into the field, and he was tears running down his face, weeping. "We don't deserve this. Oh, we don't deserve this." I said, "Sir, we do deserve this. We deserve a great ballpark and a great baseball team and a great university." So what richness are you going to bring with this school in raising it up that the city does deserve? We deserve another great university.
Yeah, I think you do deserve another great university, and I think as a city you should settle for nothing less. The first part of trying to fulfill this vision, at least as I have it mapped out, is that we need, and this goes back to your previous question, we need to do as much as we can to build a whole community around the campus. So it's just not a campus in an urban core with other institutions, but it's a living organism, so to speak.
So how do you accomplish that?
Well, there's a couple pieces of the puzzle. First of all, we need more students to make an investment on living on campus. And to that end, we are finishing 300 new dormitories that I sincerely hope will open when school does. And that'll be followed by another 300 dorm rooms, so we'll add 600 new dorm rooms. So it also gives the students the opportunity to live downtown and be downtown, which links up to what I said about experiential learning and engaged learning. That's number one. Number two is not to just have student housing, but to have multi-use housing. So we have given a piece of land on our North Campus, which is north of Chester, to a developer who in phase one is going to put up 325 units of mixed-use market-rate housing. And that will accomplish the second piece, and that is, A, diversify the population on campus, and provide an opportunity for our own constituents and constituents from the neighborhood to make an investment, for young faculty to be able to move across the street from where they're working, for staff to be able to live across the street from where they're working. So that's another piece, and fortunately it's well along on the drawing boards. They should break ground in October or November for that campus village.
So you envision people, not students, families, young families, being a part of the university atmosphere, taking advantage of the library or the rec center or
exactly
whatever else the university has to offer.
Exactly. I mean, if you thought about it and you thought, well, what would I like to have in my neighborhood? If I could kind of, construct my neighborhood, get an erector set and construct my neighborhood, what would I like to have in my neighborhood? Maybe I'm speaking personally here. A library is a nice thing. A music venue is a nice thing. Walking distance to Playhouse Square and all the performances on Playhouse Square is a nice thing. A world-class rec center is a nice thing. A basketball team that made it into the NCAA the year before this is a nice thing. But maybe the nicest thing of all, or the most important thing of all for young families, is a school. And that's why when I began, I always envisioned that the linchpin to putting together this vision of neighborhood is a vision of school. good schools build good neighborhoods. So we are beginning in August, in really what I consider kind of record time in terms of launching a project like this. We are beginning in collaboration with Cleveland Municipal School District and the city a K through 12 school that will ultimately give students a high school international baccalaureate degree. 2 weeks ago, I don't know if many of you noticed, there was a front page article in the New York Times about the growing importance and relevance and salience of the IB degree. As if this was not bold enough, IB schools require that students be proficient in 2 languages, and we've decided that one of the languages that they will demonstrate proficiency in is Chinese. So they'll work in Chinese and they'll work in Spanish, these students. But they'll work at it from the time they're in kindergarten, not when they get into junior high school or high school and then they have to fill the ugly language requirement. So the hope is that we'll get them in kindergarten where they really think this might be fun, okay, rather than torture, and they'll catch on.
I did my undergraduate degree at a big teaching school, and I was a teacher assistant in a lab school.
Yes.
And it was a great experience for me. So you envision that kind of, and I went off into another career path, but that certainly enriched my life into what I do now, being able to be a teaching assistant. So you envision something like that, even if they're not going to be teachers, enriching their life in some way doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we need for students who want to be teachers, and again, this speaks to what I was talking about before in terms of these bridges. For students who want to be teachers, they ought to have the experience early in their career of what it's like to stand in front of 30 unruly kids who may not be interested in learning, or may not be interested at least in learning what you'd like them to learn. So I think that's really, really important. And we're seeing the same thing in medical education, and Dr. Gershon from Neo-UCOM is here. We're seeing that a lot of the medical schools now are sending their students out for clinical experiences in their first year of medical school and not their third year of medical school. So, I mean, my goal would be also with the lab school to try to get as many students as we can into a classroom, get them to understand the vocation, the challenges of it, the rewards of it, etc., make decisions about it. We're producing enough teachers, but what we can't do is retain teachers. So the number of students who go and want to be a teacher, go into a college or a university and say, I want to be a teacher, are sufficient to take care of the need that we have. The problem is it's largely, particularly in urban areas, a revolving door. I think in urban schools, the average tenure now is 3 years of a teacher.
Dr. Sanders is working hard in Cleveland to change hearts and minds, and that's going to take some time,
yes.
But this is a piece of the puzzle. You talked and touched on medicine here a little bit. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the nursing program that you're doing, and then a medical school that you're talking about as well?
Let's talk about nursing first. We have had a nursing program for quite a while at Cleveland State, but it was a pretty well-kept secret, except for those who were in the nursing program. When I was having my inauguration in October, someone came up to me and said, I have a really good idea for you. What you ought to do is start a nursing school. So we had a nursing school, but it was in the College of Education. And the College of Education was called the College of Education and Human Services. So unless you could break the code and figure out that human services, okay, was really a watchword for nursing, you would not know there was nursing. So this year, really with the cooperation of the faculty and the board, we created an autonomous school of nursing. So next year we will have a dean of nursing, an autonomous school of nursing. They will occupy a portion of the new education and nursing building, And the goal is to really grow nursing. When you're talking about economic development in an urban area, sometimes the first thing we have to look at is not only the unemployment question, but the job mismatch question. So there are lots and lots of vacancies for nurses all throughout Cleveland. And the number that I've heard is that upwards of 60% of the nurses who are working in the hospitals in Cleveland come from outside of Cleveland. Well, this is a really nice career for people. I mean, now it's at least financially viable. It provides a real human service. It's a profession. It's gratifying. So we're going to build nursing.
I want to talk to you about the medical school and what you have planned for that. But first, we have to take a break, a very important one. So let's do that right now. We'll be right back.
For a wedding reception you'll always remember, Executive Caterers for special occasions.
Is it getting so frustrating at your office that it's harder and harder and harder to get any work done? You need services you can count on, starting with business class phone from Time Warner Cable Business Class. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Why put up with more frustrations than you have to? Enjoy our reliable solutions. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Time Warner Cable Business Class.
Hi, I'm John Salante and I live in Brunswick, Ohio. WVIZ is our source for entertainment, masterpiece theater, great performances, programs such as Applause that bring us weekly a look at the different performers in the area. WVIZ has enhanced our lives. It is an opportunity brought into into our home to watch something that we never had before, to bring the community itself directly to your home.
You live in Ohio, you work in Ohio, and when you have questions about your health insurance, you like talking with someone who's right here in Ohio. That's why you carry the Medical Mutual card. Our card comes with the best customer service anywhere. More than 2,700 dedicated employees are right here in Ohio. It's our job to take care of your healthcare needs, so you can focus on what's most important, getting well. Medical Mutual, the official health insurer of the Cleveland Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns.
When it comes to food, service, and ambiance, nobody does it better than Executive Caterers at Landerhaven. We'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary later this year. Since 1960, you may have attended a wedding reception, a private party, fundraiser, or corporate event at Executive Caterers. Why not friend us on Facebook and upload a photo from that event you attended? Join us for our 50th anniversary celebration as we acknowledge the past through your photos and look forward to serving you in the future. The Executive Caterers Corporate Club at Landerhaven is a program that deals with the people and the issues that affect you right here in Northeast Ohio. Here's what's on our next program.
John Stropke of Lincoln Electric, John Grabner of Cardinal Fastener, and Magnets Daniel Berry will discuss whether manufacturing is on the rebound in Northeast Ohio, moderated by Steve Gladura of Inside Business.
To make reservations, call the Executive Caterers at Landerhaven.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, Doctor, let's talk about, you talk about nursing and education. Let's talk about a medical school and something you have envisioned for Cleveland State University.
Well, again, talking from the perspective of an urban university and what you try to keep in focus as an urban university is where economic development and where infrastructure is in the city. And Cleveland is blessed, I mean really blessed by having a world-class health infrastructure in this city. I think it's just incumbent for the university to try to do everything it can to continue to provide the workforce needed to make that sector healthy. So we're not starting a medical school. What we are doing is working collaboratively with Neo-UCOM, to develop a medical school tract focused on urban primary care. We today have a tremendous shortage of primary care physicians, and we will have even a larger shortage of primary care physicians. And in the discussions that I've had with the leadership of the big hospitals and some of the smaller hospitals in Cleveland, it's absolutely clear that they understand that the challenge of the next decade is to restore and revitalize primary care. And by the way, when I say primary care, when I talk about primary care, I'm also talking about public health and preventive medicine. So I see those as co-joined. So beginning in 2011, which again is a very fast trajectory, and it really is a result of good partnerships. I mean, good partnerships can create sums greater than what individual players bring to the table. And that's the kind of partnership we've had with Neo-UCOMM. 2011, 20 CSU students will, after their baccalaureate degree, enter Neo-UCOMM as medical students. Ultimately, in that program, the students in that program will do 50% of all their clinical work and 50% of all their educational work in Cleveland.
This is going to be different than a CASE program, for example, which is a great medical school that you envision more, as you mentioned, public helping, public service, primary care, maybe geared for the inner city, maybe not, but different than what CASE is doing.
Yeah, and one other major difference, and I think it's probably a unique piece in terms of thinking about medical education, is that we are attempting to construct a continuum for the students, a glide path, maybe glide is the wrong word, a runway, okay, for the students that begins their preparation for medical school while they're in high school, takes them as a cohort through the university, takes them as a cohort through the medical school, provides residencies for them in Cleveland, and then practice opportunities for them in Cleveland. So the goal here is not simply to create physicians or primary care physicians, but the end game, an extraordinarily important part of the end game, is urban primary care physicians who will practice in Cleveland. And given what I've said about what the hospital's needs are, they're anxious to see this happen. So I think it's a really novel and exciting way. And in urban universities, which in urban areas, which often have public schools that are challenging, it's important to have this intervention and this guidance early for kids.
Somebody can live in the city, go to college in the city, and be a doctor in the city.
Yeah.
Is what's happening. And we were talking earlier upstairs over lunch, and we've reported in the news, you've read it in the paper about the brain drain here in Ohio, and Cleveland specifically we can talk about. The young people growing up getting an education, it's not hip to be here, so I want to go to Florida or California or somewhere else. But you envision this school being a dynamic part of this community and keeping young, brilliant minds here working in business, working in medicine, becoming teachers, and finding again that this is a hip, neat place to live and raise a family.
It may be our greatest challenge, and its rewards are greater than keeping LeBron James in Cleveland. The rewards of keeping our young people in Cleveland and having them invest in neighborhoods and jobs and service will ultimately have greater multipliers for this community.
You were talking before, I found
nothing against LeBron James.
We don't mention him anymore in this town. You were talking before, and I found interesting that some of the big corporations in this area were recruiting people from out of state, out of the country, and they didn't mind coming here, but eventually they wanted to leave here.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting beyond that is, you said a lot of these companies were recruiting people from here. They were every bit as good, if not better, than people recruited from, and they want to stay here, of course, because this is home.
Yeah. Interestingly, and maybe contrary to quasi-popular wisdom, the data and the information that we have about the young people who go through career services at Cleveland State is that their first choice is to stay in Cleveland. Their first choice is not to flee. They leave Cleveland largely because they do not see a career path for themselves in Cleveland. Whether that's real or whether that's imagined, okay, that's the reason that they choose to leave in many cases. Certainly some are going to leave. So in terms of the businesses, what's been said to me by a number of CEOs, and this is I guess a unintended for us positive consequence of the recession, is that they have delimited their recruiting budgets. They're not going all over the country to recruit whiz kids from first-tier schools. So they started to turn their attention to Cleveland State. And what they found were the three things that were mentioned. A, that the kids are as capable as the kids they've been recruiting. B, and I think this is really, really going to be an increasingly differentiating factor, they bring a tremendous work ethic to the table. And I say, when I hear CEOs say that, and some of these CEOs know it, because a CEO like Don Washkowitz, who went through CSU and graduated from CSU, worked all the years that he was in CSU. And his father says, you have a lot of choices. He told me his father told him that you have a lot of choices. Or you can go to CSU. And so, you know, he understands that this is part of what is the regiment of our students. So I think that their ability to get opportunities to have co-ops, their ability to get out in the city, their ability to get engaged are all important mechanisms in helping them make an investment that they want to make.
I remember when my neighbor across the street, we graduated high school, and his dad got him a car, and I went to my father and I said, Dad, Jim got a car, I'd love a car. My dad said, well, you can get a car. Like, I can't, fantastic. He said, get any car you want. I said, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to go look at it? He said, no, you're going to get a job, and then you're going to buy the car that you want. I found out that I could only afford a $100 car at that point in time. That, to me, is a sense of pride that I grew up around here within me, that I can outwork anybody. And it's interesting to know that that is being felt in the business community, that people around here are hard workers. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, in Miami it goes the other way. You get the car first, then you get the job. Okay, and you don't only get a car, you get the car in Miami. So the student cars in the parking lot were always much glitzier than the faculty cars in the parking lot in Miami. But yeah, it's very, very much a sense that these students have worked very, very hard. Really, when you think about managing the financial aspects, and we have more students on Pell grants. What Pell is really a barometer for students whose family can't afford to pay anything for them to go to college. So we have more students on Pell, more first-generation students than any other university